Yo, what's up? What's up? So today I'm going to be recording this content. This is going to go on our Skool classroom, and people that sign up are going to be able to see this in the future. I'm going to be going over for the next 30 to 45 minutes all about expired listings and how expired listings work. The biggest thing to understand about these expired listings are they were once a seller who was trying to sell a property. What does that mean? The expired listing specifically says the expired listing specifically says that they were trying to sell this property. So within the last X amount of days, depending on the data that you're pulling. So it goes back to the data that you were pulling. But the biggest thing here is when they were trying to sell. So this is a property that was on the market, listed with an agent, but for some reason it didn't sell. Right now, in the times that we're in, most of those reasons are because of the price point. Now, there's a lot of buyers out there that don't qualify for a house. They don't qualify for the house because interest rates are at an all-time high right now. Now, you are starting to see a lot of properties sit on the market, and a lot of real estate agents are doing nothing to help the sellers. Now, you got to understand, in creative finance, this space is something that a lot of people aren't educated about. So it's up to you to start educating the sellers. Expired listings are good listings to work, or a good lead source to work. And the reason why is because they are motivated. It's just their agent could not sell the deal. You got to learn to pay attention to this. You got to learn to understand what is their motive and why are they selling. So I want to talk about the beginnings. I really want to go into the beginning of this is when we're looking at expired listings. I think the biggest thing that a lot of people ask, and a lot of questions that tend to get asked, are where do you get these lists from? How do I figure out these lists? How do I talk to these sellers? How do I communicate with these sellers? How do I just start calling these people? Where do I start working them? And there's a lot of questions to this, and I want to make sure that I break this down as simple as possible for you guys, so that way you guys could take the lists that were already provided and you guys could go and you guys could actually start working these lists. Now, in this group, I already pulled 4 lists for you guys. These are 4 different markets. So these are expired listings that were in the last 30 days. So these are houses that somebody tried to sell in the last 30 days. Now, will this data be houses that might have said on there that didn't sell and they were already sold? Yes, that can be possible, but this is the part of the process. Now, I want to start from, can I get my notebook, please, Javi? It's on my desk or in my backpack, please, and a pen, because I want to keep track with you guys. I want to go through this, and I want to make sure that I keep this as simple as possible for you, and I break it down so that way you guys could leave today after watching this video and you guys could literally go start taking action. So the biggest thing with an expired listing is we got to learn to communicate with the seller. How do we communicate with the seller? How do we let the seller know that we are a buyer, or we have a buyer that is interested in the property? You have to understand that this data, thank you, sir. This data right here, this expired listings, this is how most real estate agents go get their business, is they work expired listings or canceled listings. So the biggest thing with these leads specifically is these sellers are getting bombarded with calls. What's going to make us stand out? Biggest thing that's going to make us stand out is the commitment and the confidence when we're talking to sellers. I see it a lot of times that nobody ever gets through these sellers, and the reason why is because they lack the confidence when talking to the sellers. So when we're working these leads, we have to understand the frustrations of the seller. What is the frustrations of the sellers? Well, the biggest frustration is they've been trying to sell their house typically for 6 months, sometimes up to a year. That's how long a listing agreement goes. A listing agreement is what is signed between a real estate agent and a seller. Most sellers think when they sell a house that they need a real estate agent to sell a house, which is completely false. You don't need a real estate agent to sell a house. You can work directly with a buyer, which is you or a partner that you will squat up with. Now, let's talk about the expired listing. You got to understand, you got to think on the sales side. These people are frustrated. They have been trying to sell their home. They have been trying to sell their house for a reason. So first thing is we have to learn to identify the problem of why the house didn't sell. I'm actually going to bring a board real quick. Can you get the black marker, please? It's on my desk also.
It's a like any black marker?
No, it's the big Sharpie one.
Okay.
Please. And I'm going to try to break this down, guys. And those of you guys that are watching on Zoom, if you guys have any questions or I'm going too fast, please don't hesitate to stop me, as this is going to be pre-recorded and you guys have the opportunity to ask me the questions. And if you're watching this in the future and you have questions, go ahead and ask the questions down below, and I will make another video for you guys watching in the future. For those of you guys watching on Zoom, you guys could use the chat and ask me and break down. Thank you, sir. So the biggest thing is we got to learn to identify the problem of the seller. What is the problem? Why didn't this property sell? What is going on with this property? The way I do this is I use the 4 pillars. We're looking for the 4 pillars. We're looking for the motivation, the timeline, the price, and the condition. Almost every property, 90% of the properties that I purchase, I never see them. And the reason why is because I'm able to base this off of numbers. I'm basing my deal off of numbers. What is my cash flow? What am I going to make? How am I going to be able to assign the deal? Am I going to wholesale the deal? Am I going to keep the deal? Wholesaling is going to be your active income. That's going to be the money that you're able to replace your 9 to 5, or you're able to replace your job and you get this money going. Your passive income is going to be your cash flow. This is going to be where the wealth is going to be built. This is going to be over time. A lot of people think they're going to get into real estate and you're going to get rich overnight. That's not the way it works. It takes time, but it also takes commitment. You got to believe and you got to be committed. So identifying the problem of the expired listing. The biggest thing with this expired listing is they are motivated. They are trying to sell. Now, once I get on the phone with these people, I am going to go to the 4 pillars. If you guys don't know what the 4 pillars are, on my YouTube channel, you could go to Chris Ryan Silva. You guys can look up the 4 pillars. This is what I'm leveraging when I'm talking to the sellers. I am looking for this. However, I am also focused on building the relationship. So when I'm calling the sellers, the phone call is going to go something like this. And I'm actually working on a script specifically for expired listings that I'll be uploading probably within the next week, of a script specifically for expired listings. The conversation goes something like this. Hey, seller. Hey, let's say the seller's name is John, and it's going to come back. Sometimes the data is right. Sometimes the data is wrong. But let's say the name of the seller is John. Hey, John. Hey, John, my name is Chris Silva. How are you doing today? Their rebuttal is usually, oh, I'm doing good, or who's this? I want to focus on the relationship. Hey, John, my name is Chris Silva. I was calling you about your property on 123 Main Street. Are you still looking to sell that property? If they say yes, this is where your chance to go in and get the 4 pillars. If they say, no, not right now, we want a rebuttal. I think a lot of times people tend to give up so easy. You want to get away from the giving up and you want to learn to push through. Hey, John, listen. Well, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm actually very interested in purchasing this property. Hey, John, I'm the reason why I'm asking is because me and my partner are really interested in purchasing this property. I've learned that people will have more confidence when they're saying they have a partner versus they're saying they're the buyer. Because the minute that they say they're the buyer, all the pressure comes on them. The minute that they say they have somebody that's the buyer or they have a partner that's the buyer, you're able to speak in more confidence and the pressure comes off of you. Because if you don't know the answer, you're able to say, well, let me get with the investor. Let me get with the buyer. Chris, I don't have an investor. I don't have a buyer. I guarantee you somebody in this group will partner up with you, will squad up with you, and become your partner in the deal. For myself, I will partner up with you or I will coach you guys through the whole thing in this group and we'll partner up and we'll be able to do more deals. So moving forward, hey, John, listen, I have somebody that's very interested in this house. Are you still interested in selling? Understand that most of the people that are calling them are real estate agents. And you got to make sure that you let them know, John, I'm not a real estate agent. I'm actually work with a group of investors and they're interested in buying this property. Can you tell me a little bit more about why it didn't sell? Remember, at this point, if it's expired, the chances are they don't like their real estate agent or they have a bad taste in their mouth for real estate agents. And the reason why is because they can't sell their fucking house. That's just the reality of it. They can't sell their house. Their house was on the market for X amount of time, meaning they are motivated. But you as a creative finance expert, you're able to know to come in this and you're going to be able to structure a deal. And this is why creative finance is so powerful because you can structure any deal. You can buy any piece of real estate by structuring the deal, by coming up with terms that make sense, not only for yourself, but for the seller as well too. Expired listings. Once we're in the door, once we're having a conversation with them, we want to understand why didn't the property sell? So we're going to take this off real quick. And questions to ask. We're going to write questions to ask the seller. Most of the time, as you go and you do these reps over and over and over, you're going to learn why properties don't sell. But for those people that are just getting started, it's going to require reps for you to ask these questions. I want to make this very clear. When you're asking the right questions, the seller will tell you the answers you need. The minute that you start talking more than the seller is closing you. You want the seller to be talking the most because that's when you know you're building the relationship. You're building the trust. So when you do speak, the seller is going to trust you. That's the name of the game. And I'm actually going to write this right here on the side. 80% of the deal is part of the relationship. 20% of the deal is about the deal. So you want to focus on 80% of the relationship. 80% of your conversation should be talking about the seller. How's your day? What do you do for a living? How's it going? How is your money workout? Where do you work at? What do you do for a living? How long have you been doing that? How is that industry treating you? Focus on the relationship. Don't focus on the deal. Focus on the relationship. 20% of the conversation should be focused on the deal. So questions to ask the seller when you're talking about the deal is, why didn't it sell? Now, when you ask why it didn't sell, sometimes they might say because my agent didn't get the deal done. But the reality of it is, agents typically, when they get a house, they're going to go and they're going to go put it on the market, and they're going to hope that the MLS, the multiple listing service, is going to get it sold. However, some of the answers that you're looking for are the property's too high, interest rates, nobody's qualifying, maybe the property needs too much work, maybe maybe houses aren't moving in that specific area. You really want to understand why the property didn't sell. You're letting the seller tell you the answers that you need to lock up the deal. So as a seller, they're going to feel like you want them to complain to you, basically. You want them to tell you their pain. And if you're asking the right questions, they're going to tell you the pain. And the reality of it is you have the solution to this pain. You have the solution to every single pain point the seller is telling you. The hardest part about this all is getting the seller to trust you. Now, before you gain the seller to trust you, the hardest part of this all is to start calling the list, start calling the numbers, start having real conversations. A lot of the times we think we need to know all of this information. If you're watching this right now, go to the list after this video and go start making the calls. That's the only way you're going to start learning, is by taking the action. You call, hey, listen, I saw your house was on the market. Are you still interested in selling this house? Awesome. I actually have a buyer that's very interested in this property. Let me ask you this. I see it was on the market. Why didn't it sell? They're going to say whatever they want to say at that moment. You let them, you hear them, you focus on the relationship. Cool, listen. These are some questions that I want to ask, so that way I could see if it make sure it's a right fit for this buyer. And this is where it's going to go into the creative space. And I'm going to break down creative finance very simple for you guys on the YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of content. If you guys have questions in this Skool account specifically, if you're in this, I want to literally deliver value and more value for you than that's on my YouTube. And I feel like on the YouTube, there's a lot of value, but as much value, like I want to teach you step by step by step by step. So I just ask you guys to just share this Skool account with somebody. That's all I am asking you guys, to share this. So we'll go through the basics of it. But questions to ask is why didn't it sell? And then you go back to the 4 pillars. I'm just going to write 4 pillars right here. 4 pillars. You're going to ask, okay, cool. How much are you selling it for? Then you're going to go, how soon are you trying to sell this? What's their why? We really want to understand, and that's in the 4 pillars, which is the motivation. But we really want to understand, what is their why? Why are they selling? Because once we understand their why, you're going to learn their pain. And when you understand their why, you're going to understand, okay, are they moving out of town? Are they downsizing? Are they getting a bigger house? Are they military family? Do they got a new career? Are they getting a divorce? What's going on? But one thing we do know is they're trying to sell. Why? Because their house didn't sell. Now, once we go through their 4 pillars and their why, I say this all the time, and I say it on my Instagram, I say it on YouTube, I say it everywhere, is another question to ask is, awesome, after selling, what are you trying to net out? What are you trying to net out? What are you trying to net out? What's the net amount you want to make? What is the net you want to make? So I hope you guys are taking notes and not go back and watch the video. Net, I'm just going to break it down. There's gross and there's net. When we ask them, how much are you trying to make? Most of the times the seller always gives you the sales price and they think that this is this. So they'll be like, oh, I am selling for $200,000. When a seller tells you how much they're selling for, the question that you want to ask is, cool, I understand you're selling for $200,000, but how much are you trying to make after all fees? Closing costs, agent, paying off the bank. When you ask that question, paying off the bank, you're going to learn to identify, do they have a mortgage or they don't? Now, you're trying to gain as much information as possible, because if they have a mortgage, you then want to find out how much is that mortgage, how much are they paying on that mortgage, and what's the interest rate on the mortgage. Now, I feel like I need to do more videos on all this, how to ask these questions. I just want to touch the surface of this, but the way you ask these questions, and I feel like I could continue to keep going on and on and on about it, but the way you ask these questions is going to be so big. So, $200,000 gross, and let's say they have a mortgage. You ask them, okay, cool. No, how much do you want to net after paying off your bank? Then they tell you, okay, I only have $100,000 that I owe to my bank. Cool. So what are you trying to net? Remember, the first person that says a number loses. I know you guys heard that before. However, if they don't want to tell you, then you could do the math. Okay, 200 minus 100, closing costs and all that good stuff. Maybe you're somewhere around $100,000. Is that about right? Yes. They want to net out $100,000. So now we see that they owe $100,000. If they owe $100,000, that means this is a potential subject to deal. Whenever you're squatting up with somebody, if you can figure out by asking them how much they owe, how much their payments are, and what their interest rate is, it's going to make it a lot easier for somebody to underwrite this deal. Anytime before I talk to a seller, anytime I talk JV with somebody or squat up with somebody and I talk to their seller, this is the information that I want. This is what I want to find out. How much do they owe? How much do they owe? What is their interest rates? And what are they trying to net out? Let's break it down. Let's go. Let's continue to push forward. If they owe $100,000 and this property was on the market to, again, we're talking about expired listings, $200,000. We need to figure out, and this right here is going to be sales price. Why didn't this sell? Why didn't this sell? Well, more than likely, it's probably because of the price, maybe the condition, or maybe they're just stuck on, I want $100,000. Now, once you're able to identify what it is that they're looking to net, then you're able to go back and structure this deal. Okay, you owe $100,000. This is what I always say. Oh my gosh, I can imagine that's probably a high payment for you. How much do you pay every month? I throw it in there so casually because now the seller feels trusted instead of me asking the question directly, how much do you pay every month? Whoa, why do you need to know that information? And there's times where seller will ask you, why do you need to know that information? Well, I'm just curious. This is my rebuttal. I'm just curious based on you told me the property was vacant, or based on you trying to sell this. I mean, you're continuously paying on this every single month. How much do you pay? Now, another thing that you could ask is based on what they owe, and then on their payment, they're going to tell you their payment. Now, let's say the payment is $1,000. Payment's $1,000. That looks like 600, but that says $1,000 right there. If the payment is $1,000, then we could ask them, oh, awesome. It sounds like you have a low interest rate. What's your interest rate? Oh, it's kind of low. I got a 4%. I got a 5%. I got a 6%. Whatever it is, Again, going back to the expired listings, guys, you guys got to remember, these people have a problem. They are motivated and their house didn't sell on the market. You can buy this deal, or you could sell this deal for a profit to somebody. And that's what I want to get into. So now, if they owe, this is a subject to. If they have equity on the pay, if there's equity, they want to make $100,000. This could be a potential hybrid deal. A hybrid deal, I'll write it down. Hybrid deal is subject to with seller finance. Hybrid is subject to a seller finance. What does that mean? I'm going to take over this mortgage and I'm going to finance $100,000. Chris, well, what do you mean finance? The seller is going to become my bank. You don't need no banks involved. You don't need no credit. You don't need no credentials. You don't need nothing. It's just an agreement between you and the seller. I'm going to subject to your mortgage and I'm going to seller finance your equity. How do you come up with that payment? Well, I take this payment onto a mortgage calculator. I don't know if that's how you spell it. I take that payment to a mortgage calculator and I plug it in. I'm doing 0% interest over 30 years, 30-year ammo. 30-year ammo, that's going to be my monthly payment to the seller every single month. Every single month, I'm going to be making that payment to the seller. So now I take over their mortgage, $1,000. I subject to this mortgage. I seller finance their equity, $100,000 over 30-year ammo. I take that payment, and then this is going to be my seller finance, whatever that is, monthly payment. And then this is my total PITIPI2. That is my total monthly payment. Now, at that point, I could decide, do I want to keep this house or do I want to sell the deal? I could turn around. I could get all this information. I could put this house under contract, and then I could go assign it to an end buyer. Now, if you're just getting started out, you don't have any contracts, you don't know how to ask all the right questions with the seller, you don't know how to structure the deal, the biggest thing that I could literally recommend to you is bringing value to somebody. How do you bring value to somebody? You go call the list, you talk to the seller, you let them know that you have an interested buyer, somebody that wants to buy the deal, you set up the appointment, you let them know you're going to call them back, and you go onto a Facebook group, you come into the Skool group, you go into somebody's DM and you say, hey, I have this seller that wants to hear an offer. They're a motivated seller. They're interested. They're expired listings. If you're able to get the how much they owe, what their payments is, and what the interest is, even better. If the house is free and clear, you know that's the seller finance deal. So I'm just going to break down on these expired listings, what kind of deals there are. And then if you guys have any questions, please ask in the chat. But on an expired listing, you guys got to remember, these are motivated sellers. Like, I want to reiterate that. Motivated sellers. What's going to separate you between an agent and yourself is a seller is going to make more money selling it to you or selling it to your partner or the person you squad up with than selling it on the market. And this is something that we could structure ASAP. So the way we're either going to buy these deals is subject to, we're going to take over their payments. This is if they have a mortgage. Second, seller finance. If the house is free and clear, the seller is going to become your bank. Hybrid. I talked about a hybrid. We're going to subject to the note, meaning we're going to take over payments and we're going to seller finance the equity. If the seller wants a down payment, we could always give a down payment on the seller finance. Obviously, we want to give low. This is the end goal. Our entry fee needs to be low. Our entry fee, I'll post an ebook on here of the entry fee needs to be low. So subject to, if they have a payment, we're going to take over their payments. If their house wasn't selling, it was probably priced too high. Actually, I want to break that down on why houses don't sell. Seller finance means they're going to become your bank. You're going to tell the seller, listen, I'm going to pay you in payments every single month. And then the hybrid is if they have a mortgage, but they have equity, we're going to take over their mortgage. And then we're going to become, they're going to become our bank on the equity. We're going to make them monthly payments. How much can we get in for? It's all negotiated between you or the person you squat up with. Our entry fee, we want low. What's included in the entry fee? The down, the rehab costs, the arrears, the finder's fee, title cost, holding, and your marketing. I don't even know what to call it, but it's called draft HM. If you write down draft HM, D for down payment, R for rehab, A for arrears, F for finder's fee, T for title, H for holding costs, M for marketing, that is going to equal your entry fee. That's everything that's included for you to lock up a deal. Subject to seller finance hybrid. Chris, you said something about a seller making more money selling it to you than selling it on the market. Oh, I ripped off 2 papers. It's okay. We still got some. Okay, cool. So let's say a seller has a house on the market for $100,000. This is on the market. And it's been on the market for 120 days. Well, there's several reasons why they're not dropping this price. And because they're probably want to net out a certain amount of money, or there is no equity in the deal. So now, typically to sell a house, it's going to cost you 10%. So you got 3% for your buyer's agent. You got 3% for your seller's agent. 1% for your seller's closing costs, and then you got 3% for your buyer's closing costs. Obviously, all of this can be negotiated, but most of the time, if a house isn't selling for 120 days, they're probably going to pay for the buyer's closing costs. That equals to 10%. So off of $100,000, 10% of $100,000 is $10,000. Now that means the seller's only going to make $90,000. But what if the seller has a payment of $1,000? If it's been on the market for 120 days, that means it hasn't sold in 5 months. What is that? 4 or 5, 30, 60, 90, 4 months. So that means they've already made $4,000 worth of payments. So that means they're only going to make $86,000. Every single month that this property doesn't sell, they are losing money because their sales price is not going to go any higher. If anything, it's going to go lower. So how do we put this money into the seller's pocket? How do we put this money into the seller's pocket? I'll tell you how. We seller finance the equity. So they're not going to get the money up front, but let's go back to this right here. Let's say they have a mortgage. Let's say they have a mortgage right here. Their mortgage, we'll draw a line right here. Let's say the mortgage is $80,000. Well, $80,000, that means they're only going to make $6,000 of profit, because 80 minus after they sell, if they sell, because if they hold on to this for 6 months more, guess what? They're going to break even. But the way they're going to maximize their dollars, selling it to you, selling it to me, or selling it to somebody that you squat up with, is we're going to take over their mortgage and we're going to give them $20,000, because we're going to give them the 6,000, the 4,000, and the 10,000. That's $20,000. This is their closing costs. We're going to pay closing costs. $4,000. We're going to, they don't need to make we're going to give it back to them. And $6,000, we're going to give to them, because that's what they're going to make if the house sells today. It's $20,000. Chris, I don't have $20,000. I know you ain't got $20,000, but what you want to do is you want the seller to become your bank for those $20,000. So what happens is we take over their mortgage. So we're going to take over their $20,000 and we're going to seller finance. We're going to seller finance, become our bank on the equity. So then this becomes a hybrid deal. Sorry, excuse the paper, but hybrid. We're going to subject to the $80,000 and we're going to seller finance the equity. This is where your light bulb should be turning on and being like, oh my gosh, I could buy a house for free. Chris, what about closing costs? Well, then you go get private money lender, you go get a gator lender, and somebody can come and fund the $2,000 of closing costs for you. However, again, the seller is now going to make $20,000, but we're going to break those $20,000 up into payments. What are those payments? They're whatever you negotiate. So again, it needs to make sense, because now the mortgage, we're going to take over that note. We're going to take over the note. We're going to continue to make payments on that. So say the payments are $1,000 on this. So PITI are $1,000. I hope you guys could see 1,000 barely. So $1,000. And then this payment on the $20,000 to the seller is, say, $200. So 200 plus 1,000, that means your PITI and your seller carryback is $1,200. And then let's say you could go rent this house out for $2,000. 2,000 minus 1,200, that's $800 cash flow every single month. On top of that, you get the tax write-offs on the house, and you're taking the appreciation of the home. Now, understand that expired listings are motivated sellers. These people have a problem. If you learn to focus on building the relationship with these sellers, you focus on understanding why their house didn't sell. If you don't know what you're talking about, don't pitch them this. Squat up with somebody and see how that conversation goes. Learn as much as you can. And that's the number one thing that I could tell every single person is learn to deliver value to other people. That's how you learn. When you deliver more value to more people, you create more opportunity. When you deliver more value to more people, you create more opportunity. And understand that all of us want to build wealth, but that might not be the case right here. You might want to structure the deal and then you go assign the deal for $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. Hey, I got this deal, $80,000. Our entry fee is only $2,000, $5,000, $10,000. My assignment fee is created in there. And now you go assign the deal and you assign it for a profit. If you guys have any questions, please put it in the chat. But at the end of the day, just know that these leads are everywhere. The biggest thing that I could share with you is for you just to start picking up the phone. Start taking action. Start becoming uncomfortable. And even though you don't understand it all, you just go get the lead and then go take it to somebody. How do you determine what you should ask for as your assignment fee? That comes through an experience, but it just comes back to how good the deal is. If you're able to go lock up a deal, expired listing, you get the deal under contract. You have the deal under contract. This is my biggest thing is if you do not have a deal under contract, you cannot determine what the person's going to pay you. It's up to you to get the deal under contract. Then you could determine what your assignment fee is. There's a difference between an assignment fee and a finder's fee. An assignment fee is when you have the deal and you're assigning a contract. A finder's fee is somebody that you're finding a deal for. You don't get to determine, and you could tell, like, hey, I want to make X amount of dollars, but if the deal doesn't make sense, it don't make sense. That's just the reality of it. But going back to, if you have a low interest, 3% interest subject to, and then you get $100 payments on the seller finance, no balloons, 0% interest on the seller finance, there's equity in the deal. Well, you could say, this is how I'm justifying my assignment fee. But you got to make sure when you're assigning it that there's also room for the end buyer, your investor, to make money. Because us as investors, we buy good deals. Hey, listen, I want $10,000 on this assignment fee. It could cash flow $1,000 every single month. So now, the better the deal becomes for an investor, the more assignment you're able to charge. However, if you're barely bringing your first deal to one end buyer and you know they're a serious buyer and they buy all the time, I would do my best to make sure I bring them the best deal, because now I want them to pay attention to all my deals. And as I continue to bring them more deals, I'm able to charge more and more and more and more based on the numbers. Say there's equity on subject to deals. It's a little bit different because you want to make sure you value the equity. You want to make sure you value the terms, the interest rate, and what you're getting in. On a strictly wholesale deal, like on a deal that you're locking up cash, say you go to the seller and say, hey, I want to make you a cash offer. 70% of ARV minus your repairs, minus your assignment fee, that's what you're able to charge. It just comes back down to how good the deal is. I hope that answered your question, guys. If you guys are watching this in the future, if you guys have any questions, write it down in the chat. This is all expired listings. The way you pull the data, let's actually talk about that before we wrap this up. The way you pull the data, there are multiple websites that you could go to. You can go to PropStream, or you can go to Batch Leads, or you can go to Fiverr and you can look up people that pull lists for you. Fiverr.com is just online resource page where you have access to everybody. Any job you look up, you could find somebody that's working in that field. Skip Trace, you pull a list of expired listings. You tell them, I want expired listings in the last 30 days in these markets. Skip Trace it, you pull that list and you call that list. Chris, I don't have time to be cold calling. You have access to virtual assistants. You could hire a cold caller, somebody to cold call for you that will bring you more warm leads. On there, you're able to filter out the data that you're looking for. Expired listings, you pay. Some websites charge anywhere between 5 cents to 12 cents to skip trace leads. I think a good price to pay is between 7 to 10 cents for your skip trace leads. Once you're able to get those leads, you start calling. That's where you find this data. Expired listings are motivated. They just got rid of their agent. They might have hired another agent already, but there is a reason why these houses haven't sold. These are the best leads that you could go out there and work. You have an amazing day. And just remember, you're not going to know everything. You just have to start taking the action.